Remember this game from 2 years ago between the Buccaneers and the Texans? Same stadium, same two quarterbacks facing off against each other, same thing where the game is coming right down to the wire. During this game, this man right here, Todd Bowles, completely mismanaged the clock. It was one of the dumbest decisions of the entire 2023 season. And you can learn more about it by clicking the card in the upper right corner. The Buccaneers were driving, and for whatever reason, Bowles thought it was a good idea to manage the clock in a way that would allow the Texans plenty of time to march down the field and score. Bowles didn't understand the concept that there was a finite ending to the drive based on where you were on the field, and that the time was somewhat irrelevant on your end because you were going to be able to call all of your plays necessary to do what you needed to do. So your goal should have been to keep the Texans off the field as long as possible. Your atrocious clock management was why the Texans were able to win this game and pull off a crazy win in a crazy finish. And sure enough, it happened again. It freaking happened again. Except this time, it was on the opposing sideline. Yeah, plot twist, because this time, the Houston Texans decided to do something so asinine that it has to be one of the dumbest decisions of the entire week. With the Buccaneers trailing this one 19-14, they're marching down the field as Baker Mayfield finds his man, the future Hall of Fame wide receiver Mike Evans, for a first down at the 9-yard line with 29 seconds left. So naturally, the Texans call timeout so that if the Bucs do score, they have time to march down the field and potentially do something themselves. And they're they're not calling timeout? Oh my God, they're not calling timeout. Oh my God, DeMeco Ryans screwed up again. I don't believe it. Ryans just decided to let the clock run down and save the timeouts. Something might actually go right for the Jaguars this week. I don't believe it. This is great for me, but it's going to backfire spectacularly for the Texans, isn't it?
Hot in motion. They are going to run it. And no signal yet. Touchdown!
I love it. Welcome to Dumb Decisions. Before I break down what happened here, this whole series is about taking an in-depth look at decisions made during games that were clearly awful from the start. This isn't something to look bad in hindsight. Rather, this is something to look awful almost immediately. These are moves where your gut instinct tells you right away that there is no way this can possibly work. And sure enough, your gut instinct was smarter than that of an NFL head coach. And for this one, we're taking a look at the mind of Houston Texans head coach DeMeco Ryans. I think it's time to have some hard and uncomfortable conversations about what's going down in Houston right now. It's year 3 under Ryans, and the team is an undisciplined, poorly tackling mess. It's year 3, and CJ Stroud is seemingly regressing on a game-by-game basis, from being a top 5 quarterback in the league in 2023 to where he is now. And Ryans has made a lot, and I truly mean a lot of bad decisions that you truly have to question whether or not the man knows what he's doing from an in-game management standpoint, and whether or not 2023 was just a fluke year aided by the fact that the Texans play in a crappy division. He called an awful timeout that basically gave the Titans 3 free points in a game last season, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. He did something moronic during the divisional round loss against the Kansas City Chiefs that no sane coach would ever think of doing, which you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. He kicked a field goal on 3rd down in a game against the Jets for no good reason, managing the clock so poorly on Halloween in a game that you can learn more about by clicking the card in the upper right corner. And now we have this. Now we have whatever the heck this timeout management was, where he gave his team no chance whatsoever to win the game on the offensive side of the ball for reasons beyond my comprehension. So with that being said, let's take a look at why not calling a timeout with 29 seconds left when you're up by 5 points and the other team has the ball at the 9-yard line in a goal-to-go spot is a really bad idea. At this point, the Buccaneers have 4 plays left to punch it into the end zone at a maximum. There are no more plays that they can get. Either you get the touchdown and cross the goal line in 4 plays, or you don't, and the game is over. This means that there is a finite ending to the drive. It's not like the Buccaneers got down to the 30-yard line and you decided not to take the timeout. They are in a goal-to-go situation. On top of that, the Buccaneers have 2 timeouts available at their disposal. What does that mean? It means that the Buccaneers have time to run all 4 of these plays, especially if they decide to throw the ball, since anything that hits the ground stops the clock. Combine that with the fact that anything to the sideline stops the clock, and it's not like they're pressed for time. When you have 2 timeouts, you have plenty of time to run 4 plays in 29 seconds. Anything in the field of play or a loss of yardage that doesn't get out of bounds, like a sack, just burn one of your timeouts. Maybe this situation is a tiny bit different if the Bucs have no timeouts, because the Buccaneers are not running the ball, and a sack or something in the field of play could well and truly end the game. And if you call a timeout yourself, maybe the Bucs are able to get an extra playoff, or run the ball, or have some more wiggle room. But in this spot, with 2 timeouts left for Tampa, the Buccaneers will be able to run all 4 of their plays of the 4 that they're allotted in order to reach the end zone. In other words, the clock for the Buccaneers at this point is irrelevant. And that means that the burden shifts to you on the other end. If you get a stop, you win the game. The Buccaneers don't have their full arsenal of timeouts at their disposal, so you can take 3 needs and run out the clock. And even if they did, there's so little time left in the game that it genuinely doesn't matter, seeing as you could just run it 3 times, force the Bucs to take all 3 of their timeouts, and then run around the back of the end zone for an intentional safety and win it 19-16. So regardless of whether the Buccaneers turn the ball over on first down or take 4 downs to turn it over on downs, or regardless of whether there's 25 seconds left or 5 seconds left, if you stop the Bucs, you win the game, no questions asked. But what happens if you don't get a stop? What happens if the Buccaneers punch it in from the 9-yard line and cross the goal line to take the 20-19 lead? Well, if that happens, you want as much time as possible to be able to score yourself. You want to be able to march down the field and get into field goal range to tie the game if the Buccaneers get the 2-point conversion, or win the game if the Buccaneers don't get the conversion. Again, time is not an issue for the Bucs. They're getting 4 plays off regardless. What matters now is how much time you have and how many plays you get to run. So if you call your timeout with 29 seconds left, like you should have done, if the Buccaneers score early, you should be able to have plenty of time to run some plays. I know this series isn't about hindsight bias, and it's not, but if we just use the plays that happened afterward as an example, the Buccaneers took 8 seconds off the clock on them. Obviously, there's no way of knowing what the Bucs are going to run, or how successful they'll be, or how many yards they'll get. But a play down there lasts roughly 5 seconds. So this is in line with everything. And this is the math that you should be aware of and should be calculating in your head. In real life, the Bucs scored with 6 seconds left since you didn't take your timeouts. This meant you had time for absolutely nothing afterwards. But if you call your timeout right away, you've got 21 seconds left. Even if the kickoff takes 6 seconds, because the Bucs get it in the landing zone and force a return, you still have time for 2 plays to get about 25 yards to get into Fairbairn's range for a makeable and possible long field goal attempt. You actually have a chance to win the game, and you're not entirely screwed if the Bucs find the end zone here. Even though you want to win the game 19-14, if the Bucs score and make it 20-19 or 22-19, you at least have a realistic chance at tying or winning. Which raises the question, why wouldn't you take your timeouts? If there was a finite end to the drive, if the Bucs were getting their plays off regardless, and with no timing issues on their end due to where they were on the field and how many timeouts they had, then why wouldn't you try stopping the clock to maximize your chances at winning? The best case scenario if you don't call a timeout is the Bucs don't get in the end zone, while the worst case scenario is that the Bucs get in the end zone and you have no time left to answer. The best case scenario if you call the timeout is the Bucs don't get in the end zone, while the worst case scenario is that the Bucs get in the end zone and you have time and a couple of plays left to answer. If you have 2 options and both of them pose the exact same best case scenario, but one of them poses a significantly better worst case scenario than the other, then take that option. Minimize your risk. Be smart. And DeMeco Ryans did not do that here. And again, if there wasn't a finite ending to the drive, I'm not making this video. If Ryans wanted to save his timeouts because he didn't want to allow Tampa to get the maximum number of plays off because they're at, let's say, the 20-yard line, I get it. I completely get it. Calling a timeout there changes the math and changes what the Buccaneers need to do. But here, in this spot, absolutely not. There was no universe in the world where the Buccaneers were going to lose this game by being on the field and not having enough time to do anything. And once you rule out that possibility, then yes, this becomes a really freaking dumb decision. After the game, no one asked DeMeco Ryans the question of why he didn't take his timeouts and try to manage the clock better. So I don't know what was going through his mind when this happened. We can only speculate as to why this happened. But we've definitely been noticing a pattern with DeMeco Ryans and his, shall we say, questionable in-game coaching over the past year. That seems to be the theme with the Texans over the past year. Everything has gotten worse. In 2023, Ryans was brilliant. Stroud was a great quarterback. The offense was moving the ball down the field, and everything was clicking. And now, here we are, and Stroud has regressed. The offense looks stagnant. The scheme doesn't make sense, with Dario Ngumbawale playing far too many reps, and the two Iowa State rookie wideouts that were drafted pretty highly not seeing targets despite all the injuries to every other receiver. And Ryans looks in over his head. The Texans are in some serious trouble right now. And while it's not necessarily time to panic by any means, especially considering the division that they play in, and the fact that it's week 2, and they lost 2 games to teams that were division winners last season and look poised to be very good this year, there are some questions that need to be answered. Because Ryans just isn't cutting it anymore with his management skills. And we've seen that far too often over the past calendar year. So what did we learn from all of this? If you win the game with a stop, regardless of how much time is left on the clock, the other team is able to run their full allotment of plays, regardless of how much time is left on the clock, and you need as much time as possible to mount a scoring drive and a response. If you don't get a stop here, then the clock becomes your enemy and not your friend, even if you are leading the game. And you need to call a timeout and manage the clock better. Just because you're ahead doesn't mean you can afford to let the clock run down in certain situations. And this was definitely one of those situations here. A couple of seconds can make all the difference in having a realistic chance of getting points and getting into field goal range, and having no chance or time left whatsoever to do anything. And if you've been on this series 4 times in 4 losing efforts in the past 13 games, then maybe you need to reevaluate how you coach a game and manage the clock, because that is a lot of times to be making these really, really bad mistakes. Because when all these elements are in play, you can't exactly be surprised when this play backfires. Talk about a dumb decision. Check out our live streaming schedule for the next few days. We're live every single day on this channel, whether we're covering a sporting event or playing GeoGuessr or just taking your requests. So make sure you like and subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss a single time that we go live, and so that you can join this community. Also, thanks to all our members and our Patreon supporters who get exclusive perks like their name at the end of each video, members-only Q&A streams, and cool emojis to use on videos and during streams. See how you can join this community and become a member or a Patreon member by clicking the link in the description below.